Hey everybody, this is the one and only Nicky V, and this week I'm going to try to start doing a new thing for this channel. I'm going to try to give you guys some power rankings. I don't know if I can do this every week, but I'm going to at least try. We're going to start off with the absolute worst team in the NFL. It's hotly contested at the moment, sadly enough, but I think most of us can agree it's the Seattle Seahawks. Right now there are exactly 3 people in the NFL who think that Tavares Jackson is a starting quarterback. Brad Childress, Pete Carroll, and Tavares Jackson. This guy is absolute trash, but oddly enough, he's not as big a trash as you might think he is. For example, did you know that he has more touchdowns than interceptions right now? 2-1. It's true. However, one of the teams that he's faced so far this season is San Francisco, so whoop-de-freaking-do. But still, this team is just bad on almost every side of the ball, okay? The offense is just plain anemic and can't put up any points against the defense is equally anemic. The running game, non-existent. Their leading rusher, Marshawn Lynch, is averaging 2.3 yards per carry. What are you going to do with that? You try running that 4 times, you still won't get a first down. And his longest run of the year is only 12 yards. That just won't fly. Their wide receivers, total joke. Their leading receiver right now is Doug Baldwin. Has anybody heard of Doug Baldwin before this season starts? Heck, has anybody heard of Doug Baldwin now? He has 5 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown, which is basically all came from one game, that San Francisco game, when he was pretty much the only guy that Tavares Jackson had. It's kind of sad to look at these guys and remember that not so long ago these guys were in the Super Bowl, but the bottom's fallen out. There's nobody left on this team that I would want to have starting on my fantasy lineup. At number 31 is the Indianapolis Colts. This is another team whose quarterback looks pretty good if you just look at his stats. He's thrown for 388 yards through 2 games with 2 TDs and an interception. For a game manager, not terrible stats. As long as the touchdown is above the interception, that's pretty good. But if you take a look deeper at the poor snaps and the fumbles and just the general ineptitude of Kerry Collins right now, you would know that this is not a team that is going anywhere. However, Joseph Adai is quietly having a solid season if only Indianapolis would give him the ball more often, and they have every reason to give him the ball, okay? Right now, he's carried the ball only 22 times this season, 11 per game. I don't know. I think that with a game manager quarterback, you'd think that they would be putting the ball on the ground more often, especially considering how Adai's run for almost 5 yards per carry so far this season. Even DeLone Carter is almost at 4 yards per carry. So I think that sooner rather than later, we're either going to see a benching of Kerry Collins in favor of Curtis Painter, a running back or a dual threat at running back with Joseph Adai and DeLone Carter, or some combination of the two. And as for the receivers, none of them are trustworthy right now. Reggie Wayne and Dallas Clark are kind of hit and miss at the moment, but everybody else, don't even bother. Pierre Garçon, Austin Collie, Jacob Tamme, none of them even deserve a spot on your team as long as Peyton Manning isn't an active member of the Colts. This is not a team that's going anywhere. They just need to get to the end of the season or to whenever Peyton Manning comes back, and maybe next year in the draft they can draft Andrew Luck or something. Number 30 is the Kansas City Chiefs. Most would put them at the bottom at number 32, but I'm a little bit reluctant to, seeing as how the 2 teams that they've faced so far have turned out to be really good, Buffalo and Detroit, and their schedule isn't getting any easier. They have San Diego this week. I am not going to be willing to put these guys at number 32 until week 4 when they go up against Minnesota. If they have another debilitating loss in Minnesota against Donovan McNabb, then I would be willing to say, yes, this is the worst team in the league. Right now, they're just the unluckiest. Okay, they've had 3 ACL tears to 3 key players over the last 3 games, including preseason. Tony Moyeki went down in week 4 of the preseason, followed by Eric Berry last week, and now this week, Jamal Charles is down. Not good. Right now, there's not a whole lot they can go for, especially considering how Matt Castle isn't helping a thing. He's been absolutely terrible. he's only thrown for 252 yards through 2 games. That's just not going to work. And only 1 touchdown to Jamal Charles, who, guess what, isn't there anymore. Dwayne Bowe has been doing okay. He's been averaging 59 yards per game, but he, like almost everybody else on the receiving corps for the Chiefs, hasn't caught a touchdown yet. And that might not happen for a while. So I'm still not willing to say that they're the worst team in the league, but they are close. At number 29, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. This team finally made the smart decision to start Blaine Gabbert because Luke McCown simply is not the guy. With the passing explosion that we've had in the NFL so far, when you're the only team through 2 weeks that still hasn't thrown a touchdown pass, something has gone horribly wrong. And that thing is, well, whoever's in charge of the Jacksonville transaction business who got rid of David Gerard. But still also Jack Del Rio for deciding, we picked up a guy with the 10th overall pick out of a highly touted school. Nah, screw that. Let's start the career backup. Gee, that was a great decision. Thankfully, Maurice Jones-Drew has still been great this season and going for 185 yards and 1 touchdown. And thankfully, his knee hasn't been giving him any problems yet. So that's good for all MGD owners like myself. Mike Thomas has ironically gotten the 6th most targets in the NFL, but he really hasn't been doing anything. He really hasn't been able to do anything with them because, well, how much can you do with Luke freaking McCown? So far, he has 11 receptions for 84 yards on the season. Not that good, but I'd be willing to bet that his value is going to go up a little bit now that there's at least semi-competent quarterback play. I think that Gabbert is going to be good, but we're going to have to play a little bit of wait and see before I can say anything definitively. At number 28, we have the Minnesota Vikings. I honestly thought that with the addition of Donovan McNabb, this team would finally be relevant again, making the NFC North the most dominant division ever, with the Super Bowl champion Packers, the defensive juggernaut Bears, the up-and-coming Lions, and the resurgent Vikings. That would have been amazing, but that didn't work out. 3 of those 4 did, but not so much on the Vikings. It's painfully clear to me now that Donovan McNabb really doesn't have that much of a career left, okay? If he is struggling, even with Adrian Peterson and Percy Harvin around him, then he's not going to succeed anywhere. I thought it was just because of the talent around him in Washington that was making him bad. No, it's him, okay? 267 yards through 2 games. Not going to cut it. Blowing 2 leads in both of your first 2 games. Again, not going to cut it. This is now that Jacksonville settled their quarterback situation. Now I'm turning my focus over to Minnesota and wondering when they're going to finally start Christian Ponder. I'm thinking sooner rather than later. I'm going to go ahead and call it Week 6. Week 6 is when they sit Donovan McNabb and finally go, you know what? We're going with the guy from Florida State. At number 27 is the Miami Dolphins. Please, can we all just stop saying that Miami took New England to its limit? No, they didn't. They were the unfortunate victim of circumstances that led them to just pounce on a New England secondary that isn't very good. New England had that game won. There was never any doubt in anybody's mind. Chad Henne is still the just buggy, indecisive, sack-prone quarterback that we've come to expect of him. I would not trust him as far as I can throw him. The fact that the Dolphins wanted to bring in Kyle Orton should tell you that they do not trust Henne either. However, there is a silver lining in Miami, and that's that Daniel Thomas is finally starting to break out of his preseason slump. And he did so pretty spectacularly, going for over 100 yards against a solid Texans defense. So, well done. They have a winnable matchup this week against Cleveland. I'm going to reserve judgment, and if they go 0-3, then I'll start waving the "oh crap, Miami needs to start panicking" flag. At number 26 is the St. Louis Rams. Yeah, I really wanted to put these guys higher based on what they did last year, but then again, the Chiefs were really good last year, and look where they are now. So are the Colts. So are the Seahawks. See how much a year can change? Now, I will admit, they did do okay in at least keeping within range of the Giants, but I still think that this is a depleted team. Sam Bradford broke his finger, I think, last week, and it was questionable all the way up until game time. They're still without Steven Jackson. They're still without Danny Amendola. They're still without Jason Smith. Basically, this is a hurt team right now. Once they get those pieces back and they're not hurt anymore, I think that this will be a better team, and they'll jump up a little bit higher in the rankings. But at the moment, this is just a team that seems incomplete, I guess. At number 25, we have the Cleveland Browns. Now, I'm sure that some of you want me to put the Browns higher based on their win from last week, and if that's the case, allow me to just go, woohoo! They beat an Indianapolis team that's 6 spots lower than them on this index. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, and really not much more. Although I will say that the connection that Colt McCoy's been having with his tight ends, Evan Moore and Ben Watson as of late, has been pretty enticing. So if you're in need of tight ends, Evan Moore is, well, he's enticing. However, everybody else, with the exception of Peyton Hillis, there's no wide receiver on this team that I would want to own in a fantasy league, and quite frankly, I wouldn't want to own Colt McCoy either. He puts up too few passing yards per game to be of any relevance in the fantasy game as far as I'm concerned. But this is a team on the upswing, I will admit. Good things are coming, but at the moment they're still kind of in the middle and closer to the bottom. At number 24 is the Cincinnati Bengals. This is another team I probably should have ranked higher, but given how ludicrously young this team is, I felt as though it was still a little bit too early to call them a really good team. But they're improving, much like the Browns. Andy Dalton is becoming a fairly good quarterback. Cedric Benson is doing better than I thought he would. And A.J. Green is becoming a scary cover. So I think this team is heading in the right direction. I think that Marvin Lewis might not be on the hot seat as much this season, because it seems like he's on the hot seat every year. Maybe well deserved. But for the moment, this team is improving. And if you're wondering, Nick, if they're improving, why are they number 24? Because they were worse before. Trust me. Like, this team is... It's not going to jump to the top of the rankings overnight just because of a win over Denver. They're getting there, but just give it a little bit of time. At number 23 is the Carolina Panthers. Now, from a fantasy perspective, this team is an absolute gold mine, okay? Cam Newton, who saw this coming? Cam Newton is absolutely amazing so far this season. Note, so far. 854 passing yards through 2 games, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a passer rating of almost 90, which is freaking ridiculous for a rookie of only 2 games, along with 2 rushing touchdowns. Steve Smith is finally a top 10 receiver again after who knows how long. Brendan LaFell is even getting some fantasy looks. That's insanity. But from an actual football perspective, they're still 0-2. Granted, they've faced 2 really good opponents so far, and they're going up against the Jaguars, which is going to be starting Blaine Gabbert in his first game ever, which I'm leaning more Panthers in that game, so that's good at least. So I think that this week they finally add a win to the stats column, along with all the other gaudy stats that they've accumulated so far this season. At number 22 is the Denver Broncos. First off, to all the people who want Tim Tebow to start, even to the point that you want to put up a billboard so that John Fox can personally read it on the way to work, allow me to give you the following message. You guys are morons, okay? Did you see Tim Tebow in the preseason? He couldn't hit a raindrop in Hurricane Katrina. He was atrocious. There is a reason that he not only lost the starting gig to Kyle Orton, but lost the backup gig to Brady Quinn, okay? It's because he sucks, okay? Now, onto a more joyous occasion. Eric Decker's looking pretty good. He already has 2 touchdowns and over 160 yards in this early season, so kudos to him. And I think he ran one back too, so even more kudos. Willis McGahee looks like he might be the red zone threat that we all thought he was last year. And Kyle Orton, hey, if you're a fantasy guy, he's throwing touchdowns again. Maybe not as many, and maybe not for as many yards, but it's still working. At least it's working as well as I thought it would be under John Fox, so yay. At least he won last week against Cincinnati. That is good. And finally, at number 21 for this video, the Tennessee Titans. You know what I didn't see coming? That win over Baltimore. Well done, Tennessee. Really did not see that coming. I thought Baltimore was going to run all over you guys. Literally, I thought Ray Rice was just going to pick you guys apart, but not so fast. Well done. You know what else I didn't see coming? Matt Hasselbeck having himself a little late career revival. He's already thrown for over 600 yards and 3 touchdowns, all of which to Kenny Britt. Both good job for both of you guys. And you know what else I didn't see coming for Tennessee? Chris Johnson sucking this hard. He's averaging less than 40 rushing yards per game through his first 2. I mean, that's just not Chris Johnson-like. He is 77 yards right now. Normally he'd get that through like a quarter and a half. That's just not good, okay? That's really the best adjective I can assess for him right there. And there's also an adverb and an adjective. So, yeah, not good. But I do think that this week Tennessee is going to have a very good run-friendly matchup against the name escapes me, the Denver Broncos. That should be just the thing that gets Chris Johnson back into the big scores at the running back position. So if you've been disappointed by CJ for the last couple of weeks, have faith, start him. He will not let you down. In the next episode, we're going to do the teams from number 20 to number 11.